Dear friends and colleagues, a warm welcome from the European Movement offices here in Brussels. We are here together to host another session of EuropeanChats. It's an online forum for discussion among activists and leaders from the European Movement Network across the European continent. And the idea is to bring those voices from the national level to talk a little bit about the situation in their country at the moment, because of the pandemic, but also other developments, to see how activists and campaigners on the ground are coping with today's challenges, but also to look a little bit farther afield and discuss the future of Europe in the context of the conference, the future of Europe, but also more broadly in the context that the EU finds itself at the moment. And to do this today, we have two distinguished guests, two senior members of the European Movement family representing two different countries. With us, it's Francesco Aldecoa. He is the president of the European Movement Spain. He has a long history of involvement on European affairs through politics, academia, and civil society. Francisco, it's great to have you here with us. And joining Francisco is Jelica Minić. She's the president of the European Movement in Serbia, another big office of the European Movement Network outside of the EU in the Western Balkans, but very active on the whole discussion about European integration, but also in general democracy in Serbia and beyond. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
I know you have both busy schedules, but this is a great opportunity to bring the network together, so it's great to talk to each other. Francisco, maybe I can start with you, if I may. First of all, I want to see how are things at the moment in Spain? What is the political, economic situation there, both in terms of the pandemic, but also other challenges that the country is facing?
In Spain, the COVID now is the vaccines is in a very good situation, because now we are near 90% of putting the vaccines. We are now in very good moment. It is thanks that the European Union make the decision to buy the vaccines and to distribute it, and the result in Spain is very good. In Europe is about 70%. Some states are in bad condition, like Romanian or Bulgarian, but the middle in Europe is good. In the case of Spain, is very good. In Spain, we have a decentralized country, and it depends on the comunidades autónomas. But all the comunidades autónomas have similar situation. More than 80% of vaccines. The measures that we have till now, that the use of the mask and the place of restaurants and discotheques were closed or were with different measures, now are near free all this situation, and the perspectives are very good. This is the situation in Spain about the COVID. The COVID, I think, we have stabilized the situation.
Okay. That's very good to hear and very encouraging indeed. And if I may follow up a little bit, how is the EU's efforts to help member states cope with the pandemic? How are they perceived in the public discourse? Do people recognize that working within the EU has allowed us to address the challenges of the pandemic better?
In the case of Spain, yes. We thought that it is our situation because the measures of the European Union was completely way, a very good option. If we have each state member different measures, the results were completely different, very bad. I think the result is very good. And also, in the United States are only 51% the vaccinations. The situation are completely different in Europe. And this is thanks that we have a common policy about the implementation of the vaccinations.
Very true indeed, and it's good to see that this is coming through. Jelica, if I may come to you a little bit and ask you the same thing. What is the situation now in Serbia with regards to the pandemic? How are people responding to what has taken place over the past year and a half? How is the government addressing it, and how is perhaps the EU seen within the Serbian context vis-a-vis the pandemic?
Well, in Serbia, at the moment, the situation is not good at all. There are many infected people. It is around 6,000 people infected. Every day, the number increases. We have a lot of people dying. And the level of vaccination is much lower than in the European Union countries. At the beginning, we were a very promising case. Our government provided different types of vaccines, and at the beginning, we were one among the most vaccinated countries in Europe. But now we are the worst in Europe. The level of vaccination, together with a few other Western Balkan countries, is around under 50%. So, although there are moves of the government to build 2 factories producing Chinese vaccines and the other one Russian vaccine, expecting that the epidemics will last, there is a problem that people are not communicated enough, and especially young people who are refusing or are hesitant to get vaccines. So this is the main problem, and the measures undertaken to improve the situation are not satisfactory at the moment. We are more and more similar to the Swedish model, although at the beginning we were following the Chinese model with very heavy lockdown. So this is more or less the situation, and I can't say that we are going in a very promising direction, coping with the pandemics.
Yes, indeed. I think in Serbia in particular, but generally in the region, there has been quite intense vaccine diplomacy since the beginning of the pandemic, with Russia and China trying to present themselves as benefactors in that sense. And I guess maybe Europe was a bit slow in that regard with providing assistance to the Western Balkans. Has that had an effect a little bit in public perception around the different partners that Serbia is engaging with?
Well, at the beginning, it was pro-Chinese euphoria in Serbia, that it's only Chinese that we can count on. So there were billboards, thanks to China, brotherhood, and so on and so on. And the general public was disappointed with the EU reaction, but it was not the case only in Serbia. We had a similar feeling in Italy, for example, which was heavily affected at the beginning of the pandemic. But as the time was going on, Russians came at the scene. We bought a lot of vaccines from Russia. And then finally, European Union organized itself and started to act. And then also the public perception was changing, but there was no perception that the European Union was the key actor in helping population in Serbia. It's still Russia, China, and European Union.
Interesting, very, very interesting indeed. And I think that's something that is worth keeping an eye on, because it can be used in a variety of ways. Maybe I can stay with you, Jelica, before I go back to Francisco, and ask you a little bit about the European Movement Serbia. How have you been coping through the last year and a half, both as an organization, but also in the context we just described? How are you engaging with the issues that are emerging around the pandemic?
Well, I can say that we adjusted very quickly to the situation, and in fact, we moved to the digital world, to the virtual world, and we were very active. We had a lot of Zoom conferences, Zoom meetings. We had a lot of video products, and we tried to approach a wider public. We organized the events. For example, there was one event in the springtime, I think it was in May, with our local council in Kraljevo. We organized the event on connectivity agenda, because Kraljevo is an important transport hub. And we had 1,200 participants of the event that followed the event in real time. So it is possible to be active even in these circumstances, and we used the opportunity.
No, that's very good to hear indeed. And have you experienced perhaps in adjusting in that? Have you experienced also new partnerships evolving through these new challenges? Has there been support from the government or the EU institutions to assist civil society in Serbia get through this difficult time?
Well, we cannot say that was special engagement, especially of our government, to help the civil society. The donors were helping. The donors are coming mostly from the EU countries, and of course from the European Commission through different programs. So the things haven't changed too much, adjusting to the COVID situation. The civil society just try to adjust itself to the circumstances, to the new circumstances. But civil society in general had a high literacy in communicating through the digital world, to communicate virtually. So it was not a terrible shock. The shock lasted rather shortly. We all adjusted relatively quickly to operate in different circumstances where we couldn't meet ourselves really.
And this is something we have seen throughout Europe, that civil society stepped in and provided the space for people to come together and engage at a time of physical isolation. Those civil society networks were very important, not least the various European movements across Europe. Francisco, I wanted to come to you also and ask the same question. How is the European Movement Spain adjusting through this new period because of the pandemic? How have you been able to address some of the challenges and navigate the things that we discussed earlier that have been brought about because of the pandemic?
The European Spanish movement has attached great importance of the COVID, and we do a lot of things. For instance, we make a book that it is here. It's called The European Union and the World Pandemic. We make in our newsletter every month a lot of information and a lot of editorials. We made in the 20 last telematic interventions a lot of information, and also an editorial to speak the relevance that the European Union have a unique position against the COVID and use the common vaccination. First, we speak a lot about the reaction of the pandemic and the recovery plan that we told that it is a first step of the federalism. We speak a lot. We have a lot of conference of intervention with our. We have 15 different associations in each comunidades autónomas, and we have a lot of. It was a great debate about the effect of the COVID for us and for the world, and we have a lot of articles, inclusive books, inclusive television programs. We are very active against the COVID and in favor of the European policy against the COVID.
Mm-hmm. That's very good to hear indeed. And we have been noticing the work you both are doing, both in Serbia and in Spain, but also many of our other offices throughout Europe. Their response has been quite impressive coming forward. And as I was saying earlier, providing a space for people to engage with each other in those times of physical isolation. Francisco, since you are here, perhaps we can also look a little bit at the future, both in terms of in the context of the Conference of the Future of Europe. You're a member of the plenary of the Conference of the Future of Europe. You have written extensively about the need to have a really ambitious conference. I'd like to hear your thoughts a little bit. How do you view the conference as a vehicle to debate with citizens the really important issues coming up ahead for our union, but also the broader debate around the direction that the EU should take in this new world that we are in?
I thought that the conference is going very, very slowly. And I think the conference have some problems. The first, I don't like the composition. The composition is 1/3 is the civil society, and 2/3 is the representation of the institutions. This is contrary of the position of the presidency of the Commission when she says that there is necessary in equal conditions both groups. I think this is the first problem. The second problem is that in the functioning of the conference, also the civil society have very little representation. For instance, we have 8 or 9 works groups, and only one are presidency for a young woman that is the presidency. The other 8 are presidency for the representation of the institutions. It means that there are not unequal working. I think it is necessary to change a little. The problem, I suppose, is that the 3 institutions don't understand, okay, there are problems every day. There are 3 co-presidents, but there are also 3 co-secretaries. And this is very difficult to work in these conditions. For instance, we don't know the next convocatory. They don't say when it's going. We don't know the agenda. We don't know when begin. There are also problems of daily work. I think the conference is very, very important. It's the first time that works a time the representation of the democracy, the representative democracy, and the participation democracy. But for the moment, don't works okay. Yeah. And also, we are working 6 months. We have only 6 months more, and we had till now only 1 plenary, and there are 5 more. We have very little time to be better the condition of functioning the conference.
Yeah. No, I think your analysis is spot on, and you have identified the weaknesses quite eloquently. I think the conference is perhaps a victim of circumstances because of the pandemic, but also a victim of lack of commitment from certain institutional players and certain member states. And that makes it very difficult to perform the very important function that you mentioned. Jelica, maybe I'll come to you before we talk a little bit about content. Is there any awareness around the conference in Serbia? And have you been able to engage Serbians in the discussions around the future of Europe, considering that Serbia isn't yet a member and negotiations at the moment are moving in a very slow pace?
Civil society organizations, those who are dealing with European affairs, are very active, and they have very often some papers, meetings, debates on the conference on the future of Europe. So we can't say that the scene is completely void, empty. But we do not have enough articles in the newspapers, on the TV. We do not have our politicians discussing the conference. Our officials here and there mention that the Western Balkans should be involved in the conference. But generally, I do not think that there is enough awareness and enough engagement, although we are also trying to connect our think tanks in the region. And among other products of these different networks, there are also papers on the conference on the future of Europe. We produced one recently, which we are going to share with European Movement International. So there are here and there some activities that are not irrelevant at all, but we didn't manage to make it very visible because there is no appropriate response from media and from politicians, neither in ruling parties nor opposition parties, although some of them are
It seems that we have lost briefly connection with Belgrade, but I can come back to you, Francisco, if you may, because Jelica was making a good point. There is very little visibility around the conference. Is that the case also in Spain? Is there enough communication or no?
Yes, the public opinion don't following the issues of the conference. We have a great problem with this because in the public opinion there are very little information about the conference. This is our work is to reduce this problem, is to speak at the civil society, at the public opinion. We are prepared 80 events to reduce this problem. I can send you this program because we have a lot. Yesterday we have one in the Spanish Parliament about one issue, in this case about the development cooperation, no? And it participate the more important associations for the cooperation, and we make some propose for the conference. We are making every week different events, but the repercussion in our newspapers are very, very little.
Yeah, I think that's really an important point there because civil society is stepping up, is speaking about the conference, but we cannot do it on our own. The governments are the ones that have the megaphone and they have the attention from the media, and perhaps it should be upon them to really speak about the conference and at least highlight the opportunity that it presents for citizens to have their voice heard. I mean, the motto is the future is in your hands, but it's difficult for our fellow Europeans to grab the future if they don't know they have the opportunity about it. Perhaps, Francisco, since we are talking about this, what do you think are the most important issues that the EU as a whole should be looking at in the context of the conference, but also otherwise, the top policy areas?
The question is for?
From Francisco, I'm sorry. It's good to have you back, Jelica, but I'll come back to you in a moment.
I think the 4 or 5 more important issues is first, the democracy, and to resolve the problem of the 7 article of the treaty. Is in the case of Hungary and Poland. Second, the complete the competence, for instance, in health, that it is very, very relevant, but also in another issues. Third, the position of the European Union in the world and the defense policy. Fourth, the fiscal policy and the banking union, and also the social model. For us, it's very important because we have a very important group of young people. Is the problematic of the young people. The migration is another issue, and probably I lost someone. But this is the more important issues that it's necessary to improve the future of Europe. For me, the more important is to open the convention and to open the possibility of change the treaty.
Yeah.
Perhaps the more important that I want to say is the necessary to resolve the decision making, to resolve the unanimity in the foreign policy. I think this is one of the more important questions that is necessary to resolve.
That's very true. I think you hit the nail on the head there, and these are issues, these are challenges that we are all facing. I mean, everything you mentioned is they are cutting across the European continent, inside and outside of the EU, and only by working together we can effectively address them. Jelica, does that the issues that Francisco highlighted, do they resonate with you too? What do you think are those areas that we Europeans collectively, both within but also outside of the EU, should work together towards?
Well, democracy for sure. It is an issue all over our region. Rule of law and fundamental rights also as a precondition to join the European Union. These are the issues that all citizens are aware about. Then we have very heavy environmental problems, and the green movement in Serbia, and not only in Serbia, also in some other countries in the region, but in Serbia specifically, the green movement is growing, and we have a lot of small movements in different local communities that are organized around environmental problems and environment protection. So this is one of the very important resources for the future in the civil society. And we also believe that the education, culture, youth are, this is the very important set of issues for our countries. Because our youth should be much more connected, should be much more supported. We are very glad that Serbia and North Macedonia are taking part in Erasmus+, but it would be good also to involve other Western Balkan countries. So I would choose these three issues. Although, of course, geopolitical aspects, EU in the world, then migrations also affect us. We are a famous Balkan route. Then digital transformation, as we have a lot of young people involved in the IT sector. This is one of the fast-growing sectors, but without clear strategy of the state to support this sector strategically with the vision. So more or less, these are the topics that we are especially interested for. And I would like to add something else that, for example, we have a side way to include Western Balkan countries in the debate on the future of Europe. That was used by Slovenia during the Bled Strategic Forum, when leaders of the Western Balkans took part in the debate on enlargement in the context of the Conference on the Future of Europe. So they all had the chance to express their views, their expectations, their ideas about the position of our region and their specific countries in the debate on the future of Europe.
And of course, the European Movement Network is also another avenue for
Yes.
countries and citizens outside of the EU. You're both involved in our political committees where we have intense debates on policy, and those positions then become our submissions to the conference, and there, members
We
of the European
appreciate that
Movement
very much.
indeed have the opportunity to be it in Western Balkans, the UK, Norway, and other countries. So also we appreciate very much your input, because it really adds to the strength. And hopefully, as future members of the EU, you should definitely, citizens in Serbia and other parts of the Western Balkans should have a say about the direction Europe is taking. So we are grateful to have your voice reflected also in the positions we are advocating. Maybe I can finish with one question, and I can come back a little bit to your respective movement. What is your hope, your one hope for the year ahead, for the time we have until the end of 2021, and of course looking towards 2022? What is your one hope for the European movement in Spain and in Serbia? Maybe Francisco, you can go first, and we can give the last word to Jelica afterwards. What's your hope for the EM Spain?
Our objective for the next year is to have more presence in the public opinion. We have this program of events to know the position of our civil society. We want to have more protagonism in Spain and in the conference. Also, we thought that the plurilanguage platform don't work okay, and the position of the institutions to make all the activities about the participation of the citizens and the civil society by the platform is very bad idea. In the case of Spain, the institutions speak a lot about the platform, but they don't speak about, we are in the conference 19 Spanish citizens like me, and they don't, and also the journalists don't ask for us what is our position, what is our ideas, what is our objectives. They speak only alone with the representation of the institutions, but not with the real components of the conference. Yeah. Also, problem that we want to repair is that now in the public opinion, I speak a lot about the citizens platforms, and they make some questions for these persons, but it is not enough, and our perspective is that the replay is not good. They don't speak about the items, the topics of the conference. They speak about his impressions, about. I think the panels is not a good work. And now the objective is to have more protagonism the other members of the conference. Is the moment of the citizens that represented, that are the representation of the regions, the representation of the European Parliament or the Spanish Parliament. But the protagonism that now have in Spain, the panels, the citizens of the panels, I think is not good, because they don't have clear ideas that what they want to do with the conference. They don't have proposed, for the moment at least.
That's very true indeed. And I think the point you raise is it's a pertinent one, that we need more voices in our public conversation about the issues. They shouldn't be monopolized only by political parties or institutions. There should be much more variety because that will make the debate better. Jelica, what about yourself? What are your hopes for the European Union in Spain for the year ahead, for the new year coming?
Serbia.
Yeah, for Serbia, I'm sorry.
I support Spain. We have similar problems, but we have specific problems as well. So, first of all, I would agree with my Spanish interlocutor that we also need to get closer to the wider public as much as possible, even more than we are now. This is not only through media, but also approaching our civil society partners in local communities. We made a small research with our local councils of the European Movement Serbia, and discussing with them what are their problems at the local level. There are three issues that were singled out: rule of law, environment, and youth. That was the outcome. So we are trying to work on this agenda with our local councils. And I believe that this local dimension, being active at the local level, is very important. Then it is important to have a common position on some key issues with other civil society organizations to consolidate the civil society sector on some crucial issues, what we are doing now. We had a common campaign to encourage people to vaccinate, but we also had a lot of defensive actions because some 50 civil society organizations and individuals who were very critical to the authorities, they were under investigation of a department of our authorities dealing with money laundering and financing the terrorism. So it was a kind of delegitimization of the whole sector in the wider public. So we had to defend ourselves, and we are still defending ourselves, although it is announced that nothing was found, but not so explicitly. So we are completely aware that we have to keep the whole sector consolidated and act with solidarity. And this is something that we are also very, very engaged.
That's very important indeed, because actively undermining the reputation of civil society is extremely dangerous. Civil society, together with free press and independent courts, are strong components of a healthy democracy, and it is important to ensure that the reputation of civil society isn't put into question by this kind of tactics. I'm grateful to both of you for your time. It was really very good to see you. We haven't been able to meet in person in a while because of everything that has been going on in the last couple of years. But these conversations, these European chats, is a great opportunity to connect our fellow members across Europe and also remind ourselves that there is a strong network out there of like-minded people who are working on the same things, and they're finding solutions to our common challenges. Again, a big thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you in person and working together again. As for all of you who have been watching, stay tuned, continue working with us at the national level, but also at the European level, and do get engaged with the Conference of the Future of Europe. You can find more information on our website, europeanmovement.eu, about the conference in general, about how to engage with the digital platform and have your voice heard in this process. So do follow us on social media and, of course, visit our website. And we're going to see you soon at our next event. In the meantime, have a nice afternoon, wherever you are. See you soon.